Hey, and welcome back to the Beeps and Bloops podcast. This is season 2, episode 4, and we've got a smaller crew tonight than we did last week, but nonetheless legendary. We've got Radical Reggie with us again. How's it going, Reggie?
Good. How are you doing?
Not too bad. And of course, Shawn.
Howdy.
And Pory. Pory, what's happening today?
Same old.
Don't say nothing, because you just put up another video today, didn't you?
Yeah, I just dropped a new video after a month of figuring out what I'm doing with my channel, and I'm happy with the format. I think it should be a fun video. Hopefully everyone likes it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to watch it after the show tonight. I like the new variety show sort of thing. It's kind of keeps the pace moving. It's kind of fun to jump from one thing to another. So we've got...
what's next.
What's that?
I like not knowing what's coming up next.
Oh, the next one is the next one's a crapshoot, man. You won't be able to predict it.
I won't. I'm happy.
So we've got some big, interesting stuff happening in the news this week. We just this morning heard that the Breath of the Wild sequel has been officially delayed to no one's surprise. I mean, everybody's been predicting that this was going to fall out of 2022, and looking at Nintendo's kind of end of the year run with games coming out like the Xenoblade 3 and other games like that. We're potentially talking about Bayonetta 3 at the end of this year. We've got Splatoon this summer. The new Pokemon Gen 9 stuff, Scarlet and Violet, also coming out around the holidays. So a lot of people were speculating that Nintendo really doesn't need this Breath of the Wild sequel at the end of this year as far as fiscally goes. So a lot of people were thinking it probably was going to get postponed. But was anybody here really disappointed by this news?
No. I mean, they got a lot of games coming out, so it's not really a big deal unless you're like a super Zelda hardcore fan. You were looking forward to it. But they got enough titles to really keep everybody busy, in my opinion. I'm not really a Zelda guy, but I do like the series. But yeah, that's what I think about it. So it's not a big deal.
I think they're trying to figure out what to really do with it, because Zelda generally doesn't just make another game that's the same as the last one. Every game is special and unique in its own way. And if they just make Breath of the Wild 2, will that fly as well? I love Breath of the Wild, but I don't know if I want more of it. I want something new, which is why there's usually quite a big gap between games where there's fresh stuff. And I think that holds true for everyone, because I think Link Between Worlds was brilliant, but people just didn't bite it, probably because it was more of the previous same. And every Zelda's different.
They really are attempting to broaden the scope of the game, though, obviously moving into the sky and several other, they claim there's going to be other dynamics and other, areas to explore and things like that, but it is pretty much going to be built off the same game. We don't know if it's going to be in the same timeline, though. It might be 100 years later or, something of that nature. So Kirby and the Forgotten Land just released, and I did my darndest to beat that game before we got live today, because rumor had it that you could beat it in 3 or 4 hours. Shawn from RGT85 said that he beat it in an afternoon. So I was kind of thinking I could beat it in 3 or 4 hours. Now, I've put 3 or 4 hours into it, and I'm nowhere near done. And I was actually just watching Beat 'em Up's video about that game this morning, and he's saying it's more like 15 hours or so. So I'm feeling a little bit better about my purchase. I was a little bit feeling kind of ripped off at getting a 3 or 4 hour experience for full price, but it looks like there's more to this game than meets the eye.
I think it depends how you play. If you just play straight through without finding everything, I think you'll burn through it in 3 to 4 hours. If you want to find everything, then yeah, you're going to be looking at the longer game situation. But it's like any
interesting thing for this game that plays into our topic tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about, because it's spring, and spring gives us, feelings, images of new life and new beginnings and that sort of thing. So we're actually going to talk about video games over the years that kind of gave new life to their franchises. Something that sort of came out of nowhere, went in a new direction maybe, or tried something really new, and maybe it really succeeded well, or maybe it failed hardcore. But new beginnings, that's kind of the theme for tonight's topic later, but it's interesting. Kirby here went in a little bit of a different direction, going more towards 3D. It's really the first 3D Kirby game, although it's really not fully 3D open world. It's still a fairly linear game. You don't have full camera control, but it is in 3D. Kind of reminds you of Mario World. Mario 3D World, rather, on the Switch, like that sort of style of fixed camera and that sort of thing. But it is kind of a new direction for the Kirby franchise. And interesting, like John from Spawnwave was saying, it's selling 2.5 times better than the last Kirby did, Star Allies, in its first week of sales, which kind of puts it on track. Star Allies sold about, I think, 3.5 million copies or something like that. Not really all that great, but it's looking like this one is on pace to really go beyond that. So what did I have here?
Was that game really a good, the All-Star a good game though? I mean,
no, I think a lot of people felt it was really safe and boring.
Yeah.
But it is a Kirby game, that it's a major franchise, so you would think it would do somewhat okay, but early indications is that this new game, The Forgotten Land, is really selling well in comparison to the Kirby series. So I'm definitely glad I picked it up. It's really creative. It's a lot of fun. I mean, it's pretty darn easy. There's not a whole lot of like real challenge to it, but it's fun. It's colorful. The music is fun. The environments are varied and unique. It's definitely worth the pickup, I would say.
Okay. I mean, $60. I mean, oh man, that's I don't know, man. For me, that's pretty flimsy. When it comes to a Kirby game,
it's that Nintendo tax, right? Every first-party Nintendo game is just full price forever, right?
Well, yeah, those games never go down. I mean, maybe if you find it as a digital, maybe it'll be cheaper, but. I mean,
sometimes around Black Friday or something, they may put a few of the lesser popular games on sale. But
yeah, the only way I would honestly take a look at that game is if it gets to around the $30 to $40 price range. To be honest with you, I feel that would be worth it.
Yeah, like Planet Robobot, right? I mean, that's its price would have been about that price, and I find this is on par with what a sequel to that would be, because I think it's a portable game in heart and everything, just like Planet Robot, which is a really, really good game too. They didn't ask for the full game price.
Yeah. So it might be a while before I play this one, but I'm glad everybody's enjoying it that's played it so far. And the short length of the game, I mean, some people say it takes 4 hours. Maybe that's if you do all the story elements, but if you do a little bit of extras, it can last a little bit longer. I mean, honestly, I think that's a rush playthrough if you beat it within 4 hours. I mean, obviously, you're just trying to get through it, and then you're not really. You're skipping cutscenes, maybe, or you're just, I don't know, man.
Well, the thing is, you're not, if you're playing through without exploring, that's, I think, how you get that, right? But half the fun of these games, for me at least, is exploring, looking around, seeing the neat little secrets. And then you're going to go over
so many little secrets in the game, right? There's so many little mechanical things. Like, I came up to, I think it was the third world, and you're just kind of running through the linear map, and you come across this rope that's laying on the ground with a frayed end, and you just tempted to just run past it, and then you're like, wait a minute, I have this firepower right now. What if I blow a fireball at this rope? And then all of a sudden it starts running off like a fuse, and you go chasing it, and all of a sudden it's lighting up a cannon, and you're thinking, okay, what's this cannon going to shoot? Oh, it's going to shoot me. Jump in the cannon before the fuse hits it, and then it launches you up to this secret area. It was pretty cool. Like, they're doing a lot of creative stuff. It's pretty fun.
Right on.
And then on the flip side, games that are not doing so well, and I'm a little disappointed about this. Anybody heard about Ghostwire Tokyo and opinions on that?
That's unfortunate, man. The company that developed that game they're awesome. I forget what they're called right now for some weird reason, but they're the same people that made the Evil Within series.
Yeah.
Evil Within Part 2 is probably one of my favorite survival horror games of all time, and I support the company, what they've been doing, and they want to do a different IP, but for some reason, just the release date of it just is not appealing to people. I mean, there's just so many other games out right now that people just probably, I don't know, it's not.
See, I've been following Ghostware Tokyo since last year. I've thought it looked pretty interesting, and it started out its life. It was gonna be a survival horror game, from what I understand, but then they kind of pivoted halfway through development and changed it into more or less like a magical first-person shooter. But it's it looks fantastic. The environments are quite vibrant. Like the city of Tokyo is, from what people are saying, some of the best looking city environments in any game they've seen so far. I think what's throwing people off is this first person magic system, which looks like it might be kind of clunky and complicated. I don't know until I play it, but it really seems unique to me. I was kind of excited by this whole idea of magical combos and stuff like that, the stuff that was going on. It seemed like a pretty neat game. Just like you said, Reggie, though, it's bad timing for the release date because there's just so much going on. We just had Gran Turismo 7, Elden Ring, exactly. Horizon Forbidden West, and all this stuff just came out in March, and it's just too much all at once. So I think it's taking a back burner, but sales have really tanked for that. It's really only, I think it's 80% lower than the last game they made or something. So
yeah, and it's a new IP. I mean, Elden Ring, pretty much like a Dark Souls game, so people knew the history of kind of like the history of the game a little bit. So that was all automatically going to sell. Gran Turismo, because it's Gran Turismo, it's had a good reputation, at least until 7 over the years. It's just risky to put your game out there in that mix when it has no identity yet, so I don't know if they were forced to release it at this date, but they should have probably either released it earlier if it was done or a little bit later when, it's safe.
Definitely something I'm interested in. I'm definitely going to pick it up. It's just one of those things that's probably going to be 2 or 3 months from now once I catch up on my backlog.
Right.
So, and, fortunately, it'll probably be on sale by then. Which is not necessarily the greatest thing for the developer. Sometimes you feel bad when you really want to support something, but that's just the way it goes these days.
Yeah, and then should have made The Evil Within 3. That would have been nice. I wanted to see that game.
The other piece of really big news to hit today, Jim Ryan from Sony came out with an announcement on the PlayStation blog and then followed it up with a couple of interviews that they've actually now announced what we've been calling Project Spartacus for the last couple of months, which was supposed to be PlayStation's answer to Game Pass, or at least a competitor to Game Pass on the Xbox, where they were going to offer a digital subscription service with games that you could choose from and play at any time. So they announced their different tiers, and there's been some talk online. I think Sony fans are fairly positive about it, but looking at the pricing structure of what they've announced, depending on how you choose to pay, you could actually be paying more for PlayStation service than you're paying for Xbox, and theoretically getting less value depending on how you calculate the value, because PlayStation is not going to be giving us any brand new AAA launch day and date games. It's mostly going to be giving us a back catalog of stuff, and depending on how you feel about that, like, I'm going to get the service for sure, just for convenience, I think. But I think a lot of people are saying, I can play PS1, PS2 games in other ways. I don't need to pay $18 a month US to play PlayStation 1 games and stuff. Right. So I don't know. What do you guys think? What's your, are you guys going to pick it up on the PS4, PS5?
No, I think Sony's answer should have been backwards compatibility. That would have been the perfect answer. Let us play PS3, PS1, PS2 games on the PS5 system if we owned it, or if you had a digital copy that you bought from the store previously. That would have been the perfect answer. But they're making things complicated now. And like I said, I don't really care too much about the Plus service when they give you free games to download, because a lot of these games take up so much room on my system anyways. I mean, I'd rather just have the physical copy if I own it already. It's not impressed, unfortunately. I mean, if it works out for other people better, then that's great, but it's just nothing that's going to make me want to jump up and clap my heels together. It's just like, whatever.
That's the thing. I mean, I think I will get it just for the purposes of checking it out and, maybe the convenience of playing a few of these PS1 games. Like, I'd like to go back and play maybe the Suikoden games and Parasite Eve and things like that. If those are available, that would be great on the system that I just have hooked up. But, you know, I have a PS1 Classic that's hacked and modded, so I can plug that in and play them there too. Like, it's really, you know, there's a million and one ways to play a lot of these games. When you get into the PS2, the PS3 stuff is all streaming, and that's great if you've got fiber internet in a major city or something, but I can't stream anything here. Like, we can barely manage to do this video chat without frame drops and that sort of thing. So, you know, it's game streaming for me is not going to happen. I'm not going to be able to take advantage of the PS3 stuff at all. I don't know about you guys, you know, maybe to varying degrees, but streaming's not really high on my list of
not. It's just too murky right now, you know. So
in order to get the full package with all of the 700 games that they're purporting to offer, you're going to have to spend $17.99 a month, which is a couple dollars a month more than Game Pass, or $120 a year US, which is a little bit cheaper than Game Pass on a yearly basis if you're willing to fork up for the year in advance.
Nothing could touch Game Pass right now, because you could play Game Pass on your computer, your phone. You know, it's so many ways to use that service. It's amazing. You know, Sony is playing catch up, but they're still behind with their ideas. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy.
Sony's never really been a big online player, so it's not really their personality. So I get that. And I've always said Microsoft's ahead. Nintendo, though, I mean, they're so far behind. It makes PlayStation look brilliant. So it's hard to compare. I've never been a big online guy, so.
Thank goodness for Microsoft stepping it up with something like Game Pass. I mean, Game Pass, it's pretty much the future of gaming, the way it is. I mean, having access to games through all those platforms is amazing.
You're seeing it all over Twitter right now. You know, the PlayStation fans are, you know, saying, "Oh, this is going to be the Game Pass killer" and stuff, and I'm like,
killer.
"No,
yeah, right,
no,
killer,
no, not going to happen." Like, nothing is going to unseat Game Pass unless, like, because nobody can afford to invest the way Microsoft can. Microsoft doesn't care if Game Pass doesn't make money for the next 10 years. They're going to own the market someday, and that's how they're going to do it, by just, you know, running at a loss for 10 years until they have 200 million subscribers, right? Sony can't afford to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, before we get right into the main topic, what has everybody been playing in the last couple of weeks? Anything interesting to mention?
I've been playing Horizon Forbidden West. I beat it, and I'm doing a lot of extra stuff. I was thinking about going for a platinum trophy in it. I got 70% of the trophies, but I'm like kind of like iffy now, because some of the extra things they want you to do are kind of like lame and boring. So I don't know if it'll keep my attention. But I beat that. I've been playing this game called In Nightmare right now that I got today. That one's actually pretty fun. Only $20. A cool little game for the PS4 and PS5. And King of Fighters 15. Finally got that, and I've enjoyed that game. It's kind of weird, though. You know, I've been a King of the Fighters fan for years, and this one, I feel like I wasn't that impressed, because maybe it's just me getting older. I don't know. Like, characters, same outfits, look exactly the same. It's like, man, I don't think I don't know. I just feel like it needs an upgrade to where the characters look a little bit, you know, not wearing the same outfits all the time. I don't know. Maybe that's just a pet peeve of mine. I'm like, geez, like, you guys are familiar with Terry Bogard, right? That's one of the more popular SNK characters. Wearing that drifter outfit, that trucker outfit is just played out. I'm like, oh man, it's time to change his outfit. And they have, but they went back to that drifter outfit. So I was like, oh, whatever. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Pory, what the heck? You bought a bunch of Japanese Game Boy games or something, and you've been talking about it on Twitter. Tell us what you've been playing and what you picked up.
I got tons of Japanese Game Boy games. But what I've mostly been playing is this one, Kururin for the. It's like a how do you explain it? It's like a puzzle game, sort of. Like you play as like this spaceship that's really long, and it like slowly rotates, and you have to make through level without like hitting the walls. Okay. It's kind of like if Irritating Stick was a good game in a way. That's the best way I can think of putting it.
It's a maze game where you're constantly moving, and it's constantly rotating, so you have to take the rotation into the factor as you go around obstacles. There's another game just like it on PS4 called Roundabout. It might be on the Switch as well. And it's got really cool, cheesy live action sequences, and you're driving a taxi that spins in the exact same way, and you have to get your people to the destination spot while getting money along the way. It's the same idea, it depends which one you like, and that's one we do have. So that's usually fairly cheap.
Yeah, it's a pretty good game. I've been playing this for video, the Friends PS2 game.
I played that a few weeks ago again. It's pretty
literally
bad.
just like trivia. I've never seen an episode of Friends, so I was like kind of bad at it. Yeah, it's a hard game.
Pretty bad.
It's like Dark Souls.
That's pretty funny.
Pory's kind of the king of bad games, though, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Pory, have you played Beverly Hills Cop on the PS2?
What game?
Beverly Hills Cop for PS2.
No, that sounds wonderful.
That's PAL only, though, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, I have a PAL PS2 though, so I can.
I was gonna
get it,
do a video on it, like all these franchise games. They're like pretty horrible, but I was playing that game and I was like, dude, I can't do this. This is too horrible. Yeah, you'll probably love it, man. It's actually so bad. It's so bad it's bad, but it's actually pretty funny. How the game is, man. It's like it feels like it's unfinished, but you'll see if you ever play it.
Yeah, well, I have a PAL PS2, and I've been slowly collecting like the shovelware. Like I did a video on Little Britain last year. Like all the like prolific. Like which company makes Beverly Hills Cop? Is it Blast Entertainment?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it's Blast or the other
good.
horrible one. I'm pretty sure it's Blast though. Oh man.
Because Phoenix is usually like the bootleggy stuff, the stuff that looks like bootleg Disney movies and stuff.
Snow White stuff. Yeah.
Phoenix actually, it's funny. They'll repackage a game and call it something else, and it's the same game. Mm-hmm. Like it's like, whoa, man, what's going on? So yeah, Phoenix is pretty hilarious with that.
Yeah, those games are funny. I want to get all of them, but like it's just so much to import them. So I've just been kind of researching on like, oh, this one would definitely make for a funny video. Then I throw money down and buy it.
So I put up a video yesterday, just kind of a joke video, talking about some of the games that I've been playing recently, and I'm absolutely kind of overwhelmed right now with all the new stuff that came out in March. Like I was saying, I just don't have time for Ghostware right now. I did pick up Elden Ring. I'm not very good at it, but I'm fairly determined to at least give it a good old college try. So I've been kind of poking away at that here and there. Gran Turismo 7, despite all the controversy, I've stuck with it. I've played it every day since launch, just about. Got at least my daily workout of 26 miles or whatever driven just about every day, picked up my bonuses and that sort of thing. Now, Sony, they really shit the bed when they launched this game, and it pissed off a lot of people. I mean, the game is excellent. Like, the gameplay is excellent. The racing is tight and fantastic. Like the cars look good. The upgrade paths and stuff, like it's a classic Gran Turismo game at heart. The base game, but they did so much stuff at launch to screw it over with the microtransactions and always online and stuff like that a lot of people were pretty unhappy with it. Yeah. Sony actually started putting out fires, and they made a statement a few days ago that they apologized for the mess, and they actually sent everybody 1 million credits, which was kind of nice. Shawn, you should check your account if you haven't been on recently, because if you go into your garage and go to the gifts, there should be a ticket there for 1 million credits. And that was nice gesture from them, but they're also rebalancing the game, adding more credits back in, giving us the ability to sell cars again, which they had taken away, which was shitty. They're really working to try and fix this, because the community really came down hard on them, and as well they should, because this was a disaster. But nonetheless, I'm really enjoying the game. Have you been playing much, Shawn, since we talked?
No, the kid's been hogging the TV, and now that I got the wife hooked on Animal Crossing New Horizons, the TV's even less accessible. So I've been going to the other room, and I finished 2009's, or whatever year it came out, that Star Trek based on the 2009 movie. It only took me 8 years to beat the game. So that's bang for your buck, right? My first trophy in it was 2014, and I beat it now, so that's 8 years later. So good longevity in that game.
I also picked up. I've been wanting to get Spiritfarer for a while, and originally I wanted to get it on the Switch, but then I've recently just been having a lot more fun playing on the TV with the PS5 and stuff. So I picked up a PS4 copy of this game. Now, Spiritfarer, if you don't know, it's an indie game, and it's kind of like a management sim, a little bit of like a life sim, a little bit of farming, a little bit of crafting, a little bit of platforming. There's a lot of different gameplay styles at play, but it's all tied together by this really incredible story and world building of this idea that you are essentially this kind of Grim Reaper sort of character. You've just taken over the role. This young girl is your character. She's taken over the role of the Spiritfarer, this like magical being who goes around collecting spirits who have unfinished business and helping them work through their issues and helping them to pass through to the other side. And it's a really compelling story with some really nice laid back gameplay. Something that I've really been enjoying. So I actually played that for about 5 hours yesterday, like pretty much all afternoon and early evening. Really enjoyed that. And then I got into, my daily dose of Gran Turismo and then a little bit of Kirby, trying to catch up on that. So definitely enjoying everything that's came out this year so far. Anything else before we go have a quick break and then hop into the main topic?
Yeah, I've also been playing Starfy, the first one on Game Wave. I got 1 through 3 in my import order because I was always really curious about the series. I don't know, it looked like a lot of fun, and I'm like maybe 2-3 hours into the first one, and it's a pretty good game. I'm definitely gonna pick up 4 and the 5th one, which we actually did get in North America when I beat the first 3 probably. So I'm looking forward to that. It's a fun series, so it's kind of like it's like sort of like Kirby but underwater, sort of. It's like that same vibe. Like, it's different gameplay, but it's like that same feeling of like, just a cute, easy platformer.
I have the legendary Starfy for DS. Never really played much of it, but it's an interesting series.
Yeah.
That's the only one.
And the DS one is like the 4th game in the series. The previous ones came out on the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. I think the chronological order of it is week 1 through 3 are on the Game Boy Advance. The first one was supposed to be on Game Boy Color, but it got like postponed. Game Boy Color was kind of dead. Then 4 was Japan only on the DS. Then the 5th one was the one that we got because apparently Sea Life is too Japanese for us. I don't know.
We do have all
right, guys. Well, we'll take a quick little break here, and then when we come back, we'll dive into reminiscing of spring and video games that mark new beginnings in a franchise. So we will be right back in just a couple of minutes. NerdCrave. Okay, and we are back. And Reggie, you good there? Oh, good scratch.
Mm-hmm. Gotta get
all
it.
right, so we're gonna move into our topic for the night, which is kind of reflections on spring and the idea of spring, bringing new beginnings, new life, new growth. We thought we'd talk about video games that went in a new direction and maybe brought some new life, or maybe failed to bring some new life to a franchise or series. So we're just kind of going to go around. I've got a list of a handful of games, and we can also talk about comebacks and things where something's maybe just come back after being gone for 20 years or something, and how that was received. I was actually doing some research on a little bit unrelated here, but the Link's Awakening remake that came out on the Switch. Did you guys know that game on the Switch has sold almost as much as all other versions of Link's Awakening on the Game Boy Color, even the digital version on the DS and stuff? The Switch version has sold 5.5 million, and I think all the other versions combined have only sold 6 million. So that's kind of a successful comeback.
That game's a fan favorite.
Copies.
Oh.
Yeah. It's up there with a Link to the Past, as far as I know, with a lot of Zelda.
I like Link's Awakening better. Link's Awakening is better than Link to the Past.
I even hear that too.
Link's Awakening is my favorite Zelda game.
I think it might be. I mean, maybe Breath of the Wild, but Link's Awakening for traditionals for sure. Well, I don't know. Link Between Worlds was really good. Just not enough people get a chance.
Mine's is kind of an off the wall one for a lot of people, but I like Zelda 2, Adventures of Link. That's my favorite one.
It's not my favorite, but I do enjoy it. It's good.
I love the continuation of the storyline from the first game because I like the story to kind of like be a sequel to the other. After Zelda 2, Adventures of Link, the story went 1,000 years later. If Ganon beat Link here in this timeline, so I'm like, oh. But yeah, that's another video.
Yeah.
So for those of you out there in the audience, you should know that we've been debating this topic back and forth for about 4 days now, to the point of nearly slamming our phones down and walking away at times. And there's a lot of controversy about what makes a game really be a success as a remake in terms of what really defines a new beginning really working out well and redefining or reimagining a series as opposed to maybe just a continuation of a series that was well thought of or something. But I'd be curious to know what you guys would really think of, maybe the first game that comes to mind when you think of something that kind of reinvented a series or reinvented a genre even.
Well, I mean, we were discussing. I guess I'll steal this one. God of War. I don't know if maybe I like God of War more than everyone else. I really like God of War, and the first 6 games were all the exact same game, and I loved it. And when I saw the new one come out, I'm like, I don't like this. This is not something I like. This is just like every other game. But I really did love it when it came out because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be an open world game like every other one. But it was actually like Super Mario Odyssey, a whole bunch of self-contained open worlds, and there was a nice linear story to go through. So it didn't feel like you're in one big open world and you're just wasting a lot of time getting from one place to the next. Each area was its own adventure, and it controlled really, really nicely. It really continued the story in a way that really made sense, because number 3 kind of left it on you're kind of done. So this one really makes sense, and I'm looking forward to see what happens next. But so I think they didn't need to reset the series, but they did. They took that chance, and it paid off.
My major, mindset for this topic was, things being a commercial success in terms of sales and public opinion and that sort of thing. And definitely with God of War, it took a series that people were familiar with, but it was more of, I won't say it's a niche franchise, but it wasn't a huge, mega blockbuster hit. And then they came out with this new God of War on the PS4, and it was significantly more popular, significantly more well thought of amongst the masses. Maybe not amongst the dedicated fans, but amongst the masses, it really made an impact and really rose to a level that it had never achieved before with the new game.
Right on. The series for me that I can think of right off the bat is honestly Soul Calibur, with Soul Calibur 6 over 5. If you guys remember Soul Calibur 5, it was kind of a mess. The game was rushed. It was just, it really came out on that crazy year back in, I think it was 2012. And they brought a lot of new characters into the series to kind of mix it up or whatever like that, but nobody cared about the new characters.
Is it the one that had Darth Vader and stuff in it?
That's part 4. That one was
part
popular.
4. Okay, yeah, I remember playing that one.
Yeah, part 5 added a lot of new apprentices pretty much to older characters, so they had the same moveset but a little bit changes and everything like that. They had a story mode that was really bland and not really well developed. It was really bad, low production values. And come to find out, they were kind of rushed to push the game out before it was ready. So there was this big holdout for Soul Calibur 6. But once that came out, I thought that was pretty amazing. So yeah. But wait, hopefully I answered the topic right, because now I just kind of spin off there while I was talking.
No, that's good. When a series is maybe floundering a little bit, and then we want to avoid maybe insulting anybody by saying a series is dead or a series is boring or past its prime or something. Avoid those terms, but the reality is, if a series is maybe not selling as well as it used to, and then a new game comes out that adds a whole bunch of new gameplay features and stuff, and it really is a success, kind of
right.
What we're talking about here.
And the new Soul Calibur really did what the Soul Calibur 5 should have did. It brought a lot of people back, like, to the series. Like, when you have a sequel, people are supposed to be drawn more to that sequel over the last game. You're supposed to improve upon it. And that's what they did with this one. And they kind of rebooted the series, which it needed after part 5. So, that series really put a smile on my face. So yeah, Soul Calibur.
Something that really occurred to me, during the conversation over the last few days planning this topic is the Donkey Kong franchise. Donkey Kong was hugely popular in the arcades in the early 80s. It was popular. Hang on a second.
Yeah. Go ahead and answer that.
Sorry. Yeah, Donkey Kong was hugely popular in the arcades, and then it kind of tapered off. I mean, we had an NES Donkey Kong version, and leave me alone. We had an NES Donkey Kong version, and then it really tapered off until the SNES when we got Donkey Kong Country. And Donkey Kong Country was really the injection of personality and new gameplay and stuff to completely send the Donkey Kong franchise in a new direction. And honestly, it stayed on that trajectory ever since, with like Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on the Wii U and now on the Switch and stuff. Like, that change that they made way back on the SNES really put Donkey Kong on a trajectory to stay relevant.
Yeah, well, the first 2 Donkey Kong games, they were well received, but when they brought Donkey Kong 3 out, I like Donkey Kong 3, but I gotta admit, you get tired of it after a while because there's nothing really to do. It's a loop, so it's not really, it's nothing really to tell everybody about. So Nintendo, after that failure of that game, they didn't want to mess with it anymore. They just kept like redoing the older games to play it safe. It wasn't until Rare stepped in that, hey, we want to make a new Donkey Kong game, and they used their own formula. They made it relevant again. Donkey Kong Country, that's a game where it pretty much brought new life into the series, and to me, it was a better life because people will talk about the Donkey Kong Country games over the original games.
Exactly. Like, it's really an example of a reimagining done right.
Yes, and also it's kind of like it's a sequel to those older games because when you play Donkey Kong Country, I think the Kong called Cranky Kong, he's supposed to be the older Donkey Kong from the older games, so he's in it older and everything like that, giving advice. I thought that was kind of cool. They gave that little homage to him. So
yeah. You got one for us, Shawn?
I guess Burnout was one. That one.
Talking about that the other day. That's a great example.
Yeah, everyone liked Burnout. I wasn't into racing games at the time, but I ended up getting Burnout Revenge one day when we're playing the demo for it, and I loved Burnout Revenge. And most people love Burnout 3, Burnout Revenge. Whatever you play first, that's the one you're like better. And then I was really excited. I'm like, I'm gonna get into the series. So look, doing Burnout Paradise. I played the demo, and it's open world and it's slower and there's no crash mode. I'm like, why would I want this? And then my wife picked it up for me one day, and I guess I got to play it. And it turns out I loved it. I mean, it's different. It feels like it's got a lot of Burnout in it, but it does feel like something completely different. But it is really, really good, very lovingly crafted. And it's a welcome addition, although I wouldn't call it Burnout proper, but I guess that's why they didn't call it 4.
Yeah, it's funny, like, I don't like Burnout Revenge as much as you do. I think it's a decent racing game. I think it looks nice. I think it plays nice. Like, it's fun to play, but it really doesn't feel like a Burnout game. And I wonder what everybody's opinions would be, whether they think that Burnout Paradise was a good direction for the series to go or a bad direction for the series to go.
You mean Burnout Paradise? Okay, yeah. I thought you were saying you don't like Burnout Revenge.
No, Burnout Paradise. I think it's a good racing game, but I don't necessarily think it's a good Burnout game.
It's good in the sense that it has the same the modes where it's like you're crashing cars and trying to survive. It's got a lot of the modes. It's just not. It's an open world as opposed to having set tracks. That's the big difference. And instead of having like a menu to choose your tracks, you actually have to drive to the intersection, which slows it down a bit. But so, well, that's what we're talking about, right? It's a game that went in a new direction. I mean, the same argument can be made for God of War. I mean, it's got nothing to do in terms of how the old God of War is played. Those are just beat 'em up games, and this one is like a over the shoulder, hack and slash. So it's different, but they do have the same heart, the same feel, and really speaks. Both those games really speak to the power of the directors and how they managed to transition from one style to another while still maintaining that feeling and spirit. And that's a rare thing because a lot of times you lose that. I look at Fear Effect. They made two really good games on the PS1, and we never saw a series again. They were making a third, but then they didn't. And then a few years ago on PS4, there's this top-down shooter called Fear Effect, and it looks like it might be okay, but it hurts me because it's not Fear Effect. Fear Effect was like a Resident Evil type thing with really awesome cell-shaded graphics or not cell-shaded, but FMV backgrounds, and it was really good trial and error, try to do it. And this one's like, and on one hand, it's like they're testing the waters to see if people care, but they're also doing it with a bad game, which is going to tell them that people don't care, which they do, but not for that one. And it's basically the whole Chibi Robo argument. It's like, well, here's a new one.
Yeah. With that game too, they should have like either like I think they should have finished the Inferno game, the one they canceled. That would have been made everybody happy. But they want to test the waters with a newer game, but it's not the same formula. I played that game and it's okay, but it's not going to make everybody, oh my God, Fear Effect is back. Like we have to. No, it's not like that. So it's unfortunate. And that series. Oh, go ahead.
What people need to do is, because I get it, a new game costs a lot of money. So what they should be doing is doing what Resident Evil does. Resident Evil has its mainline games, and they change style all the time, and everyone gets mad every single time. But they have their spin-off games, and there's two games called Revelations, and they're usually lower budget games. They're not high AAA games, and sometimes those are met with more love than the main games. It's like Assassin's Creed. They made Unity, which everyone hated, and that was their big budget AAA game. But then Rogue, which was just a juggling of the assets from 3 and 4, that's the game people like better. So big budget doesn't mean it's going to be a good game or people will like it. You got to have heart behind it. And sometimes these little top-down games as part of a series don't cut it. And I need to be told it's really good before I really care. Like Darksiders, I have Genesis. I haven't really played it yet because I'm kind of worried it's going to suck. Because it's just here's a cheaper version of something we've already made. Are you making it like that? Don't money? Or
it's funny you mentioned Darksiders Genesis because I haven't played the other games, and I bought Genesis specifically because I've been hunting down Diablo clones. And Darksiders Genesis, coming from the perspective of being, something similar to Diablo 3, let's say, it's actually really good. The controls are good, the story's interesting, the graphics are good, but I have no way of comparing it to the original games because I haven't played them yet.
Well, you can't, because the first one was basically God of War meets Zelda, and that was the game. So you can't really, Diablo doesn't really come close to that combination. Heavy combat, but also find right items to unlock new areas in a fantasy world, but also post-apocalyptic. It was pretty sweet. And this was probably fun. I haven't heard anything bad about Genesis, but there's been no game since. So
it is funny, though, when developers do that, they throw out this kind of half-assed game just to see if people are still interested in the franchise. But, is that really a good choice? Because if you give that half-assed effort, are not people going to lose interest in what you're offering?
Yeah, I think it's a bad choice. In this case,
unless you sell it for $20 or something.
In this case, it's a bit different because THQ went under. So I think we're lucky we got anything. I wasn't sure if we were going to get South Park, The Fractured But Whole, because of THQ going under, and they were the ones making it. But luckily we did get it, and it was a good game.
And we got THQ back.
Sort of. I mean, they still use the name THQ Nordic, I think, in some places, but the whole company really is gone. They're just using the name to familiarity. It's not really bad. It's like Atari. It's kind of like there.
So, Pory, have you got any suggestions on the topic?
Yeah, I was honestly struggling to think of a game that like changed its direction for the better. But then I thought of, but then I thought outside the box with that, and I thought, what about a game that returned to form?
There's lots of those.
The series I'm thinking of is Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, Sonic's a classic in the Genesis era. The Dreamcast ones are great. Then Sonic kind of goes a little downward, at least for most people. Some people like them. And that's totally cool. But then my interest in Sonic rekindles by them just returning to form with Sonic Mania. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like that's it's like thinking outside the box, but it's sort of the same idea. You know what I mean?
It's funny, Pory. I actually have that written down on my list here too. Like, I totally agree with your mindset there. Like, even just returning to the way something was after all kinds of bad decisions can actually reinvigorate a series for sure. What do you think? What do you think of Sonic Mania? Like, have you really enjoyed it?
It's my favorite Sonic game. I like it more than the classic era ones. Even like I absolutely loved Mania. It's a delight for sure.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
It could definitely be the greatest Sonic game of all time. It's in that ranking,
and that's one made with heart. Because it was made by people who were fans, and unlike Nintendo, Sega's like, I recognize talent. Come on over, we'll help you make it for real.
Just hit them with the DMCA.
Yeah, that's and the thing is, I think Nintendo's been losing some of the heart in their games. I mean, their games are still good, but they're losing some spark. And Sega recognizes that they don't have the spark, so they're bringing in people who do. And Nintendo's like, you have spark, die.
I'll get a devoted fan to make a new Choo Choo Rocket. Then we'll be all good.
Somebody made you guys are familiar with Metroid 2: Return to Samus, of course. Somebody made their own version of the game that was pretty awesome. Right? Yeah, I thought Nintendo would have tried to hire him or something like that, but we know how that turned out. But that game was awesome, though.
It's funny you mentioned Metroid, because that's definitely on my list for things that, Metroid in the early 2000s was kind of a niche thing to really, like, not that many people were Metroid fans. Just based on sales, most of the games sell 1 million or so. When you come to Metroid Prime, though, that was a huge reinvention of the series, taking it in a completely different direction. And the sales figures and the fact that this game is still beloved 20 years later and getting remakes on things like the Wii. And now we're talking about getting Metroid Prime remake on the Switch perhaps this year. Like, it's a game that really has legs, proving that was a welcome change to the series, even though we just had Metroid Dread. And it's interesting because Metroid Dread kind of reinvigorated people's love for the 2D series of Metroids, which is kind of interesting too.
Well, it's two different series, right? I mean, the Prime series and the main series are two separate things, because Dread is really Metroid 5 when you get right down to it. And I love that they didn't really coddle anybody, and it was literally, here's the next tiny bit of story for you, and it was really cool. I really love seeing what happened to Samus after, because the entire Prime series takes place between, I guess, 1 and 2. The Prime series basically is 1. That's why when they remade 1, they called it Zero Mission. So 0, all the primes, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I like that they haven't abandoned the original series, because that is a really good series with Fusion and now Metroid Dread. And I really want to see what happens with Prime, even though I haven't played the original 3 enough yet. I really want to, and then get into the 4 when it eventually comes out. Because Retro Studios is making that. And they're the ones who made Metroid Prime 1 and the 2 newest Donkey Kong countries.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And that reminds me of another one that kind of comes to mind that's a bit of an obscure one. How about what I would consider to be sort of Metroid's sister series, Kid Icarus? So, you have the first 2 Kid Icaruses, they're the side-scrollers, and then it just goes dormant for years because Nintendo likes to forget that their franchises exist. And then all of a sudden, they're just like, boom, here's this, really sweet, like, 3D, Kid Icarus for the 3DS. Like, I love that game. That game's great, and I thought that was a great direction.
A lot of people think it's one of the best games on the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I haven't played it yet because I haven't. I don't have the stand.
But
yeah, that's Kid Icarus is funny because that was such a departure from the gameplay, but it went so well.
Well,
pretty much like a rail shooter at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, like completely different style of game, but a lot of people really love that game. People thought it appears on top 10 lists for the 3DS all the time. So that's definitely a good example, actually, Pory. Another one I was thinking of, and I'm surprised nobody's mentioned it yet, is Grand Theft Auto 3. Grand Theft Auto being a top-down kind of Streets of LA sort of whatever game on the PS1 didn't catch people's attention in the same way that the move to 3D. Grand Theft Auto 3 was a huge shift in gameplay and technology. Obviously, like the technology was a big part of it going into 3D, but the way that Rockstar designed that world really kicked off, to this day, the most successful franchise of all time. And, if they hadn't made the moves that they made in Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto 5 would not be sitting on 160 million copies sold, which is absolutely outrageous. Like, nothing comes close to that.
It is the first sandbox game I ever played where you can pretty much go anywhere you want and do anything you want, which was nice. The production values they put into that game in early 2001 were unheard of, because if you remember back then, the big game that was kind of like similar to Grand Theft Auto was a driver. Driver,
yeah.
Was, you're the wheelman and all that stuff. But with the delays of that game, they couldn't compete with GTA 3. I mean, the radio stations, all the different radio stations, all that voice work that went into that game, the missions, it was just fantastic. And the transition from night into day, it's just like amazing at the time. I remember I was in Korea when that game came out. And I was only like one of the only people that had a PS2 at the time, because you guys remember PS2s are hard to come by when they first came out for a long time.
Yeah.
So I remember I went out and bought that game, and I brought it back and played it. And my friends saw me play it in the day room, and they were like all just blown away by it. And that was it. So I let my buddy borrow my PS2 at the time, and he played through that game. And I think he beat that game within like a couple of days, because he was that drawn into it. He just kept playing it, and he enjoyed it that much. So that was a game changer, definitely. And they never looked back ever since. They kept that type of formula in all their games. I just hope that they won't focus like the next GTA 6, like totally online, because, it's been 10 years. Almost 10 years since we got a new GTA game. They was adding content online for GTA 5, and I don't know if they've been working on 6. I'm pretty sure they have.
They're working on 6. They are working on it. They announced that they're working on it not too long ago.
They just actually made an announcement this week past, actually, that GTA 6 is definitely coming, along with the announcement of the new GTA Plus membership, which sounds a little bit ridiculous that we need this.
Like money.
At this point, like, GTA Plus is literally a membership to save you money on microtransactions. Like, it's a discount program for microtransactions. So it's literally a microtransaction for microtransactions. But this is the kind of money that people are willing to spend on this franchise. Yeah. And it's all because of the decisions they made in like 2001. Like, incredible.
Honestly, me personally, I'll just stick to the story mode. I love the way the stories play out. I did have fun playing with friends online, but I don't really go play that game online much. So I'm good. But for most other people, they'll probably love that service.
We were talking kind of backstage about this yesterday in terms of comebacks, like something that couple games that really impressed me over the last couple years. And of course, I bring these games up all the time because they're major favorites of mine. But Streets of Rage 4, who really expected another Streets of Rage, like a numbered Streets of Rage game, to come back in like 2020 or whatever it was when it came out? Like, who expected Streets of Rage to be revived 25 years later?
They not Sega, because they had kind of canned the series after the Dreamcast failure. They tried to make a 3D one on Dreamcast. Fighting Force was made, and they were asked to, hey, can we make the Streets of Rage 4? And when Sega saw it, they're like, nah.
Yeah, exactly.
But they had made another one. I don't know if you guys have seen it before, but there's a prototype of the original Streets of Rage 4 that was for Dreamcast.
Yep.
How it was. It actually looked kind of cool, but they didn't know where it was going. Yeah, there's some good footage on it. It actually looks pretty cool. But they gave up on the franchise, and somebody else asked Sega if they could pick it up pretty much and make a new game. And they did that. You know, it's actually better than any of the previous games in the series. You know, the combo system in it, it's pretty awesome. I'll just say that. You know, so
yeah, I have not had so much fun with a game in years as I had playing Streets of Rage 4. I beat that game like 4 times now. I just absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And then Crash Bandicoot 4 too. Like, you know, we've seen other Crash Bandicoot series games on the PS2 and stuff like that, and some of them were kind of crappy, and then it sort of disappeared for a while. And then we got the Crash Insane Trilogy remastered, which came out, which was really good. And then they brought out Crash Bandicoot 4, which to me is the best platformer of any type that I have ever played. It's just the controls are so tight, the action is so good, the graphics are fantastic, the level design is fantastic, and I think if they could actually carry on with that, like we're seeing some problems with Toys for Bob and stuff under Activision where they've kind of shelved a lot of this stuff. But man, I'm really hoping with Microsoft taking over Activision that they're going to free up some of these studios and get them back to doing some of this Spyro and Crash stuff, because man, I was really impressed with Crash Bandicoot 4.
You just said Activision bringing games back. Now I want another Pitfall. We haven't had a new Pitfall in a very long time.
Yeah.
And that is like one of the great granddaddies of video gaming right there. So where's my Pitfall for PS5?
Yeah.
What about Super Pitfall? You want a sequel to that one?
Well, if they make it better than that one, God, I don't even know how that's called Pitfall. Like that's the worst. The PS
honestly
Pitfall game was great with Bruce Campbell though.
Oh, wait, which one had Bruce Campbell's voice in it?
PS1, Pitfall 3D, not Back to the Jungle, was it? But it's Pitfall 3D
Beyond
on
the
the PS1.
Jungle.
Let me check it out.
And if you put a code in, you can see the cutscenes they were going to use in the game, because they actually have 2 stories in the game, and you only see one of them, but if you use a code, you can see the other storyline, which is comic book form, with all new dialogue by Bruce Campbell. And that's really cool.
Pitfall 3D Beyond the Jungle? Is that it?
Beyond the Jungle, yeah. I beat that one. It's kind of hard and really awkward, but back then I had a lot of time, so I'm like, yeah.
Okay, never mind. So it was. I looked online. It said $250. I said, "Oh, that's a sealed copy." People were trying to sell the sealed copy.
Yeah, I paid like $10 for mine.
I'm like, Jesus, what's wrong with people? I need to pick that up then.
It's good. I like the Super Nintendo Pitfall. I like the. I haven't played the Wii one.
The Super Nintendo one, it didn't do it for me, but it's so weird to me because like the Mayan Adventure is on freaking everything. Like it's on Super Nintendo, it's on Genesis, it's on Sega CD, it's on 32X, it's on Jaguar, they remade it for the Game Boy Advance. Like it's freaking everywhere, and I don't know why. Like, was it that beloved?
You know, it had floaty controls and really hard to learn it. Again, back when I was younger, I could learn these things. I had nothing else to do, so I figured it out. I love the ending of that one because you're saving your father, right? The original Pitfall hairy guy, and they still have him drawn pixelated. Like he's still like 7 pixels, and he's stuck to a post. Like you've seen the graphics of Mayan Adventure, so it's kind of really neat seeing your father, who still looks like the Atari version. That's kind of a weird, funny end.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah. What does everybody think of the Tomb Raider reboots that we started getting? End of PS3 era and moving into the PS4.
Very well done. It brought a lot of mainstream people into the Tomb Raider series because I don't know if you guys noticed, but though the first Tomb Raider games were great, the first 2 series, the controls probably threw a lot of people off, especially with the first storyline, which was like 5-6 games. I mean, the controls are rough, man. Like I went back and tried to play Angel of Darkness. I was like, dude, what is going on here?
Well, that one's bad. Angel of Darkness is bad. The first 5, it's a misconception that they're bad games. They're very precise. No, I mean, everyone says the controls are bad. They're actually really precise. They're very technical, as opposed to you don't just run and then jump when you feel like it's time. Everything's very calculated, and people don't play that way. And I think that's where the communication is and how the controls work. They're very perfect. And then Angel of Darkness really screwed everything up. And then they kicked off Core and brought in Crystal Dynamics, and everything's been good since then. Because they made the
so like I said, with the first games and everything like that, they're great games, greatest hits, sold well, but still, I don't think a lot of mainstream people could get into them.
Now they
it's
can.
many,
Yeah.
And they when the Crystal Dynamics got involved with the Legend series, man, those were amazing. Those are still my favorites to this day. That trilogy is awesome.
Good.
But the newer ones really brought an adventure feel to it for people who just want to play games similar that play kind of Uncharted in a way that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the new series did, and I thought it was pretty amazing. The first game, being stuck on the island with your friends, trying to find out what's going on, and just climbing around that mountain, it was insane. The second game in that series, Rise of Tomb Raider, when you're climbing that mountain, oh my god, it's great.
I remember
that
moment. I remember that moment in the first game, early on in the game, where you're running away from the people that are chasing you, and you climb out on that old rusty airplane, and then it starts to break apart, and then it goes over the waterfall, and it's like, oh my god, this is so intense.
Yes, exactly. And and they kept elements from the original Tomb Raider games. You could actually go tomb raiding in those games with little side missions and get extra stuff. It was really great. I thought it did a good job. It didn't overstay its welcome. The new trilogy that they brought out, they took a break after Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which I thought was the weakest in the series of those three games, but it was still a good game. What do you think about it? Did you think it was not weak?
I also found I finished all three, and the whole time I'm playing Shadow, I'm like, this isn't as good, but at the same time, it really had a really good world build and a good story, and it played exactly how it should have for that. And the whole point of the series was basically to act like a prequel to the entire series in a way, even no real continuity. Because by the end of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, she's a Tomb Raider, and you can almost imagine the first game happening right after that. And it was really good. One thing I'm sad about is the first game had a really cool fire mechanic that played throughout the whole game, because I like burning things in games a lot, and they really didn't have that in the second and third game. But one thing I like about the second game, Rise of the Tomb Raider, is on PSVR for the Anniversary Edition. There's a whole VR mode of her going through her mansion, and that's
right. I forgot about that.
I haven't played it much because it was at the very beginning of VR, and it was really blurry, so I kind of put it aside and haven't gone back to it. But I should, because I like VR a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know if any of us have really put significant time into this game to make a judgment, but based on your opinions of public opinion anyway, what do you guys think of Pokemon Legends Arceus making a pretty bold move for a Pokemon game?
What's a Pokemon?
No opinion on that one.
Yeah,
I played a little bit of it just because I was curious, and it's definitely a gameplay style that is probably more interesting to me, but still not interesting enough. I mean, I traded the game in a couple weeks after I bought it. I was just curious about it, but a lot of people are, and I mean, it's sales-wise, it's doing really, really well. It's still, several months later, it's still in the top 10 sales charts. It's selling and selling and selling like crazy. I think it was number 5 this week or something. So, it really brings to mind people want you don't want to say the Pokemon series is stale necessarily, and that would really piss off a lot of people, but it's been the same way for a really long time. And when you see a pretty major attempt to move in a new direction, it's pretty interesting. And it looks as though they've taken some of those mechanics from Arceus and they've put them into the new Gen 9 game as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that influences the series going forward.
I like when a company uses spin-offs to make experimentation, because I mean that's more of a spin-off prequel-y kind of thing, right? So I think they're allowed to play differently. I mean, no one's going to criticize Pokemon Conquest, which is a crossover between Pokemon and Nobunaga's Ambition on the Game Boy Advance DS. No one's criticizing that for not being your traditional Pokemon because it's a spin-off, and Arceus kind of is. Resident Evil does constant spin-offs, and so does Mario, and some of those spin-offs become their own series. And So I like when they do that, and then sometimes, like you said, maybe if it's popular enough, they'll take elements of that and put that in the main series. So that's good to hear that their experimentation's paying off. I have no.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. It's not for me, but it is noteworthy along the topic. I think we're running towards the end of the stuff that I've got prepared. If there's anything else, we're pretty much coming up on the end of the hour here anyways. So does anybody have anything else they wanted to mention before we take off?
I have a reverse question. Oh, go ahead, Reggie. You're the man. You're the guy.
Yeah. I mean, nothing major. I would say, guys, before we kind of head out, try these games out, maybe, and if you have the chance to. In Nightmare, PS4, this is what I'm playing right now. Mm-hmm. And also Tatum for the PS4 or Switch, so some cool games I'm playing right now.
Yeah, I was in the game store today looking around, and I saw a copy of In Nightmare.
You said, nah?
It was a little more expensive than it was like $50 or something here, and then you were saying it was like $20 or something. So I was like, yeah,
it's only released as a $20 game.
Remember we're Canadian though, so our prices are
much higher. That's a lot higher.
No, $20 should be like 25 or 30, not 50.
It's hard to say, because a $60 game for you guys is 80 for us. So maybe not that much more, but we pay 80 for our games. Kirby 80.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But that's all I got.
Price, I just had a reverse to the question. What is there any series that haven't changed ever? Like have been the same from day one? I mean, God of War was one of them until the 2018. What is there any? I don't know if there is any.
Well, I think it's pretty, and that's kind of the splitting hairs that you can really get into, because I think every series that has continued on for any length of time has gone through several changes in order to stay relevant. However, there's a difference between incremental changes and progress versus a major shift, right?
So, that's what I mean. Like God of War is a major shift. Burnout Paradise is a major shift. Zelda 2, Mario Brothers 2. I'd say, Rock Band is kind of exactly the same with some small minor sub-changes here and there. But I wonder if there's more that I'm not thinking of.
Well, you look at something like the Dragon Quest series. Like you look at Dragon Quest, and Dragon Quest is like there's definitely progression throughout the series, but the difference between 7 and 11 is really just a graphical coat of paint. It's the same gameplay basically. Like it really hasn't changed.
And that's
of course,
good.
there's a lot of spin-offs. I was going to mention the Dragon Quest Builders series, which is really pretty unique and a pretty cool idea.
Love that series.
It kind of makes me want to rethink, like when I brought up Soul Calibur as a changing game in the series, Part 6. Fundamentally, the games all play universally. They all play the same, but I just felt like 6 was really it stands out from the rest, I would say. But I'll go back into that. Sorry. It's just the games that you guys are talking about. There's big differences. Like when you compare God of War, the first trilogy, to the newer games, there's a big difference and everything like that. And with Soul Calibur, I know that was my choice, but it's like they still play the same because they're universally fighting games. So.
Part of this theme was just coming back to life. Like Street Fighter 4 wasn't a big change either. It was just a new game in the series. So no, everything fits quite well. There's a lot of ways to look at this. It's a spring. Everything's free and fresh, and new flowers are growing. We can talk about any kind of flower you want.
Yeah, so I think that pretty much covers everything we had prepared. Any last thoughts before we sign off for the evening, gentlemen?
No, just happy to hang out with you guys, and hopefully everybody will have a good evening or morning whenever this comes out. So.
Whenever.
I'm gonna try and get this up tonight because we've got some time-sensitive information in here, so I'll be editing shortly. All right, guys. Well, if that's everything, we will see you again in 2 weeks for episode 5. Thanks for tuning in. Stay classy.